Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, it is often said that software is eating the world. And have you ever thought, you know what, I've got a great idea too, for me or my business. But a lack of tech skills and not knowing where to go or who to speak to that can bring that vision to life hold you back, so you forget about it until you see somebody else create it 5 years later. Well, today's guest is helping businesses solve problems and run better by providing software-based solutions with an emphasis on innovation, creativity, and common sense solutions. And I can't tell you how refreshing it is to hear that after having earned my stripes in IT for 20 years. I've seen what happens many, many times when you go tech first, problem later, when of course it should all be about the problem first before you even think about introducing technology into the mix. So today's guest is Calvin Brown, and he's developed applications for some of the world's largest brands. And what makes him unique is his dedication to educating entrepreneurs and other tech professionals on how to create the software that we all know and love. And the tech group he created for black coders, Black Men Code, has now grown to over 1,000 professionals. And his publications have also aided him in his mission to spread knowledge, educate entrepreneurs, and empower them to solve their own technical issues. And not only that, it's also got a classic story at the heart of it all, of a small town boy with dreams of starting his own business in the big city. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to Atlanta, Georgia, where Calvin Brown is waiting to share his story. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Calvin. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yes, hi, my name is Calvin Brown. I am a tech founder based here in Atlanta, Georgia, but also we're bi-coastal, so based in Los Angeles as well. Founder of a tech company. It's been around since 2003. I hail from one of the great state of Mississippi here in the United States, and I'm into all things generally tech and how tech can responsibly help people.
And when I was researching you, I learned that you're fueled by your passion for understanding the nuances of different businesses' technical challenges and creating just a common sense path to solve them. And you also consider yourself, I believe, a forever student, eager to build on your hands-on technical foundation by architecting, building, and teaching others the art of making complex technical issues solvable. But my question to you is, I want to take you back before all of that. What was it that put you on this path, and what is your origin story?
My origin story is one that hopefully is inspirational, because most people ask now, like, wow, you've only done one thing your entire adult life as far as a career. And that's very true. However, when I started, it wasn't that I knew exactly that I wanted to do programming, or that I wanted to, I could even imagine myself building the things that we use daily. The way that it mostly worked out is I wanted to fix computers. That's all I knew about them was hardware. And so that was my path. And I ran into a relative who was like, hey, we're doing software, but it's kind of healthcare, kind of older stuff, kind of boring. And you have to imagine this is 96. So the .com phase hasn't blown all the way up, but it was definitely on the rise because the internet, the speed just wasn't there at the time. And at that point, I still wasn't in love with it, even though interning for them. And I told him that I will always make the point to say that I was interning for free so that people know that sometimes you get started. It's not always, this great relationship is, I wasn't getting coffee, but it was pretty darn close to it. And the idea of being able to make something once and have others consume it multiple times, that was the spark for me. It was being able to paint a work of art and have it hung on multiple walls. That was the thing that clicked for me in my mind, and that was the journey. So no real advantages in any form of way. I'm from a small town in Mississippi. My parents neither of which graduated college or anything like that. So it's not like I had this individual advantage. I was just always curious, and my curiosity led me on a path that was near what I would end up doing, but nothing like what I thought I would be doing now.
I believe that curiosity also put you on a path to write your own book, to help entrepreneurs bring their app-related visions to life through effectively communicating with developers without necessarily knowing the technical language. And I always say on this podcast, technology works best when it brings people together. And I think being that bridge between the technical world and the tech and the consumer world and the business world is so important. But can you expand on that for me?
Absolutely. So one of the biggest challenges we have is that, someone has a great idea and, they see X company doing it, but not doing it well because they're not implementing it the way that the people would see it best. If you think about maybe social apps or anything like that, there are lots of great ideas out there. The problem is that they don't know what the widgets and little things that they see, what they are. A good example of that is we had a client recently who wanted to do streaming in their app. And so we were like, great. So we added a streaming feature into their app. They were able to broadcast. People are able to see them. They're able to collect this information. And they came back later and said, we would really like this to work like Instagram. Now, that's pretty laughable. I'm like, this is a multi-billion-dollar company. They probably update this weekly. So, following that is probably not on your schedule. However, the same technology is available to you, but all of the little nuances and features are just not there. And so you have to be able to communicate what you're trying to accomplish. So I can let you know up front, like, hey, this is attainable, but you would need the budget in order to do that. And that's what the book is really about. It's really about, how do I ask for what it is that I want without knowing the language? If you spoke Mandarin and I spoke English, there's only a few things that we could probably communicate without gestures. And since most things are over the phone now and definitely over Zoom and all these other platforms, how do you really communicate with the technical world to say, this is the feature I want? I want emoticons. Well, what do you want them to do? Do you want them to show on the screen? Similar to what? And it really helps them point to existing things and say, this is the feature I want, and show them how to really pull that together. And it's short. I broke it down into 5 steps so that you can ask all the right questions to get you to where you need to be in order to successfully have someone build out an app for you.
Love that. Incredible journey. And what is it you're doing now in 2021? That path has took you on a long way, but what problems are you solving with technology now?
Oh my God. So we're super busy. So COVID for tech companies was a blessing because everybody went to what we were already doing. All of my staff has always been home. I've never invited my guys to come to the office. I'm huge on family and having personal time, and, getting dressed to kind of bring the same laptop into the office probably didn't make a lot of sense for tech companies. So we've always done that. And so what we're doing now, we just got so busy. And so what we're doing now is we're working with, I think it's the world's largest airline, helping them to streamline their baggage scanning and things like that. Things that they had time to do when they didn't have as much traffic, was to revise products that were super busy. We are working on, again, probably 8 to 10 apps now for various things, from the art world to restaurant industry, things like that, kind of codifying these things that are like, you can order food from anywhere. You got to have your card in all these different systems, but how do we codify this to a way that makes sense for a new restaurant to get on and not have to choose and lose customers back and forth? So consumers are solving these issues and they come to us to fix them. So that's really what we're doing. We stay busy with new ideas and really just helping businesses to push and really be more efficient. That's what we're about. We build the things that help your business be more efficient. Think of it as a group of employees inside an app or a piece of software that's in there doing the thing consistently that you need to engage your audience.
So 5G is a hot topic at the moment. So I've got to ask, is there any use cases that you can share just for people listening that are hearing about you guys for the first time and or interested in exploring 5G applications beyond telecom? Is there anything you can share around that?
Absolutely. So when we talk about 5G, you're talking about the next iteration of speed for cellular data. And cellular data can be both voice and, of course, text messages and any other form of data. So a text message, it could be any form of information in a text, right? So if you think about dial-up versus DSL or cable or fiber, right? That's what we're talking about, the difference between maybe 3G and 5G. You're just talking about increased speed.
Yeah.
So application that most people would care about is when your car is driving and that information that it's using to update, say, traffic information, things like that, it's constantly sending data and compiling that data and sending that back to your car to say, hey, these are road conditions. Or if you have a self-driving car, which a few of us have, it's using the information about where the lines are in the road and things like that, that it's kind of pulled in from its different sensors and cameras and sending that data via 5G. 5G is allowing us to send larger photos, more data, more consistently, and get it back to your car. So it kind of doesn't matter that your car is driving itself if it can't notify you of the hazards ahead. Huge potholes, oh, this road is out, that sort of thing. So that level of speed is enabling us to get information to our devices more quickly. And so that's really what we would see 5G used in our day-to-day operations, which would affect us all. So it doesn't matter if you have a Tesla or a GMC Yukon. All of those are using traffic data and communicating back with their centers, and 5G is really enabling them to send more information, which helps, talk about the condition of your car. Is it overheating? Where is it located? Things like that are super helpful with all of the millions of cars that are on the road.
And just to further bring to life everything that we're talking about here, especially for the business leaders and decision makers listening, can you expand a little bit more about how they can enable new revenue streams for operators too? Because there's just so much opportunity here, isn't there?
Absolutely. So again, being able to do things faster gets you to your consumer faster. So imagine if you're a business that sells, and I'm going to think of something really simple, you sell jewelry. And you get this to your clients and think about the ability to, I don't know, if you want to do some form of notification or I've thought of recently, this is an idea that someone can pursue. I'm not sure I'll do this, but some form of disposable RFID tag. So what if that tag constantly at every station would send out information on its own, just connecting to the local 5G network to kind of really track a package en route. So not the difference between, hey, I got picked up at one station and I'm en route to another, but legitimately at every point be able to update you about where an individual package was and then throw away that RFID or 5G enabled reader. Things like that are enabled innovations because of 5G. We didn't have the speed before, so that device would have to connect. It would be much slower. The networks would be overwhelmed, things like that. So 5G is really allowing us to have just a multitude of things that you could do a lot more quickly. And with sending more information, I'm able to video chat with different continents, with the continent of Africa, who may only be communicating back with maybe 3 or 4G, but you're able to buffer that data differently because of 5G, because you can hold more information at once. So anything that needs improved speed and efficiency, which is probably all of our businesses, can benefit from 5G for sure.
And is there anything that you think businesses should be thinking about when they're considering building intelligent systems in this era of 5G and AI?
Yes. So I made a prediction, I think it was last week or so, that we will work alongside AI. So if you think of where things are going, I'll give you an example of these, what we call more templated based sites like a Wix or something like that, right? So 10 years ago, the idea of being able to have kind of initially formatted content, things like that, were just kind of a pipe dream for the most part. And now we work with a client who generates content copy for websites and posts and tweets that's AI driven. Because the idea of generating that much content at once, 3 to 5 times a day for Instagram, for example, is a lot. And so being able to communicate with your audience and then having kind of an AI model pull from, a list of things that you've given it and use that to make content, no matter how generic, is staying in front of your audience, which is something that's really important. So this is an example of something that's like, hey, this helps improve your business, helps have another arm as an extension to your business. Something you may not have a social media department for smaller businesses, someone to deal with those sorts of things. So you could really benefit from these types of things with communicating with your audience. And as you add additional information, as you get to know more about your audience, you can add additional parameters, which makes it more refined and seem more personalized. And again, I always think about products that physically go out. AI is an amazing thing to keep track of and to monitor where things are, because customer service is a heavy expense. I think that AI will help to greatly reduce the cost in customer service.
And another question I wanted to ask you is, if you were to go to any bar anywhere in the world and sit there long enough, you'll come across a guy that told you he had the idea for Uber before it became Uber. And a lot of the times people come up with great ideas, but they don't have the technical expertise and put these self-imposed limits on their careers. So if we do have someone listening that could be anywhere in the world and have got a dream of bringing an application and turning it into a reality, is there any advice that you would offer on that?
Absolutely. The first is to, we always say, if you can put it into 2 paragraphs, it's probably a good idea. Yeah. And it has to be like, somewhat cohesive. What happens a lot of times, if we use Uber as an example, which you just spoke of, Uber is a replacement for taxi cabs. That model was somewhat broken in that it was difficult to get sometimes, depending on the area. They just want taxis in the area. And so what they did was they used technology to improve the state of an existing system. Taxi cabs have been around probably as long as people have been driving on roads, in urban areas or in city areas. And so they just improved on something that's already been there. And so if you have an idea that's improving on something and you're using technology for it, it's probably an amazing idea. So even if now is not the time for it, it's probably definitely on the horizon, because all industries are being replaced. We're seeing currencies replace banking in some ways. We're seeing, ride sharing replace traditional taxis and things like that. So all things are being updated in their time. And if you are marketing towards an existing business and using technology to replace that, I would absolutely say that's a great idea. But going back to my original point, if you can codify it into about 2 paragraphs, and it makes sense and it flows pretty smoothly, you probably have a great idea. That's what you take to a company and say, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. How do we do this? And you kind of stop at that point. What happens is most of them try to dig into the technical side and try to figure out what they're going to use and how it's going to work. And, I've been doing this for 26 years and constantly learning daily. But there's a lot of experiences that we've had, both good and bad, that tell us like, hey, this is a great idea. This probably isn't. So you probably should just rely on your technical expertise. You wouldn't go to your doctor and say, hey, you know what? I've pretty much done my own biopsy and this looks good, so you don't have to look into this anymore. That's kind of how people do with tech. And I always caution against that, because you just don't know what you don't know. And, you stick on the idea side, let the technical people do their part, and, you usually have a great marriage.
And it's also been well documented that there is a huge lack of diversity in the tech industry. I think it's fair to say that progress has been made, but there's still so much work that needs to be done. And one of the reasons I started this podcast was to hear different stories from different backgrounds in every city, in every country around the world. But I'm curious, what has your experience been, and what's your perspective? Are things improving?
Things are improving, and things are improving because we're pushing forward. A couple years ago, I started a group on meetup.com called Black Men Coding. And the necessity, I'm sorry, I've had it 3 years now, but the necessity of something like that, and maybe, you're talking 2017, 2018, the necessity of something like that to be the first to do something. You understand it's 2021, and not to date your show because it's a play in the future, but the necessity of something at this time to still break barriers, to have an organized group of Black coders in 2021 is almost ridiculous to say, right? It's crazy as an idea. However, it didn't exist. So I think it was Toni Morrison that said, when you can't find an answer for something, you are the answer. So you have to create it. Yeah. And so I created a space for that. And I didn't realize how many people of color is just like, hey, there's just nobody else like me in my department. And this was like a unique experience that they were having. And it didn't really make sense, meaning that, I think tech is probably one of the most anonymous industries, meaning almost anybody can do it because it just requires a computer and will.
Yeah.
And so the idea that one group is better than another or should dominate and things like that is just, pretty asinine. And so seeing that diversity now and having to bring it to the table with others who are doing great jobs out here, doing it is, I think we're all hopeful for the improvement of it. But I do think that it's kind of wild that we are this far along and we don't have that level of diversity because, I mean, if you think of anything, art, music, anything that we love as a culture, all of those things are better because different people bring different perspectives and there's kind of these different points to it. And so I'm just doing my part, to bring that in. And I think we're, probably 1,200 people or so. And this is just people who I used to get together with in Atlanta pre-COVID. Had it been just an online platform for those that do, it would probably be in the hundreds of thousands. We offer free training, usually try to do every Wednesday, any topic that they choose, and just really help out in any way that we can. And so I think we're making some great strides, but I do think it should be noted that as of 2021, it just doesn't really exist in that way. People still ask me like I'm some form of unicorn, like, hey man, how did you do this? This seems, just weird. I've never really seen a Black guy do this before.
Oh my God.
And that's just odd.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
It is. It's a textbook example of microaggression there. If we do have anyone listening, again, anywhere in the world that wants a career in tech, unsure if that world will be welcoming to them and want to make a difference and want to lead the way and be that answer, is there any advice that you would give to that person that's listening right now?
Yeah, do it.
Yeah.
Do it. I think that we're in a very special time now. I think that to have information be so free to us and to be able to communicate all around the world. You and I are talking now. I'm sitting comfortably in my home in Atlanta, you in the UK, and we're communicating real time.
Yeah.
That was someone's idea at some point, and they were told that they probably were crazy. I read something once, this gentleman in the 1800s, late 1800s, was talking about the fact that people would no longer ride horses, that one day they'd be riding around being propelled by motorized devices. And the way that the story ended for this guy is he ended up being captured by the local people in this town and put into an insane asylum for the rest of his life. So that story hopefully is to inspire that sometimes your ideas may seem a little crazy at the time, but the time is coming for it to be the right idea. And I think that you should absolutely do it, absolutely go for it. Again, as I speak to my experience, I had no special hands up or no special camps that I went to or anything like that, other than the will to succeed and a desire to make the path a little bit easier for those who come afterwards. So absolutely, positively do it. And, your time will come. Just be patient and stick it out.
Absolutely. I love that. And I think diversity of thought is critical to progress in as a whole. Companies can't serve a diverse audience if they don't have diverse staff too. But I'm curious, what is it that excites you about the road ahead, the future of tech, and also the role that you guys are going to be playing in that too?
Oh man, the exciting thing is that younger and younger minds are contributing to tech. Yeah. And so I don't know if you have children or not, but kids have the most clarified ideas about the world and the way that they see things. It's usually unfiltered by stress or these other things. They just kind of are very hopeful about things. And so tech is allowing them to contribute to the things that people use with their amazing ideas. So that's the thing that I'm the most hopeful about. Our part in it is that we're building it block by block. We're the part that you don't see. When you walk through those automatic doors, and they just open for you, we don't even care anymore as a society. We just expect it to open. Actually, we're kind of upset when it doesn't open. But those companies that are behind that, they're revolutionary in that way, because it's not for the healthy person that's walking through. It's for the person who needs a little bit more time, who can't hold the door and get themselves through, right? To make more businesses more accessible to others. Technology for things like an elevator, if you think about how long ago that was, seemed crazy, like a lift. Well, we call them lifts, but for something like that just seemed crazy, but think of all of the ways it allows us to build taller buildings. And so these people who are behind it, like my company, who are doing these things, I think that we are shaping the future in the way that people use them, in a way that people don't even notice anymore. And I think it's a thankless job, kind of, because people don't know all the things you do. Once everybody's car is driving itself, nobody cares about the autonomous driving, right? They're just like, oh, this isn't working, right? My car hit something, right? They complain about it, not thinking about the fact that if you wanted to drive from Atlanta to California, you know what I mean? It'd be exhausting to do. And so this is really helping to make, a safer and reduce insurance costs and just impacting the world in a great way. And I'm happy to be a part of, just a small part of what's making that happen.
Well, I've loved chatting with you today and loved hearing about your story that you've kindly shared with everyone listening today. But a question that I always like to ask my guests is also if there's a particular song or piece of music that has inspired them in the past or helped them throughout their career, or just help them get their head in the zone before going on stage or something like that. Is there any particular song that's close to your heart?
Man, so I think I do the opposite. So before I do anything, I try to set my intentions. Yeah. I try to, just say, I want to make sure it's good. Of course, I like to know who I'm talking to. And of course, I do my research ahead of time. But I like to set my intentions to say, I hope I give the most that I can. I hope that I'm inspirational to whoever is, maybe at that point, who, wants to feel inspired. And, we found each other in the universe in some form or way. That's really what I do beforehand. I try to focus my attention and be very specific about what it is that I want to accomplish. And of course, that thing is just, shine my light and to bring more awareness to tech, to those who are making tech happen, no matter what they look like, what their backgrounds are, and to just have fun with it. That's always my intention.
Oh, absolutely love that. And before I let you go, for anyone listening that would like to find out more information about you, what you do, or even contact your team, what's the best starting point for them?
Sure, absolutely. So the name of my company is Kairu Consulting. That's KAIRU consulting.com if you want to go to our website. I am on the platforms. My website is iamcalvinbrown.com. The same on Twitter and the same on Instagram.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to sit with me today. We're in 2 different time zones, but I've just loved hearing about your dedication to educating entrepreneurs and other tech professionals on how to create that software that we all know and love. So thank you so much for sharing that with me today.
Thank you again, Neil, for having me.
So a huge thanks to the inspirational Calvin Brown for joining us on the podcast today and talking about the importance of creating space for minorities within the tech industry, sharing his journey, and also for sharing how he's helping people and businesses to bring their application dream and turn it into a reality. Not to mention the future of tech and what excites him too. For me, Calvin is one of the good guys, and I'd love to stay in touch with him and get him on the podcast and continue to follow this journey with him and help support wherever I can too. But that's it for today's episode. If anything resonated with you at all, please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram at Neil C. Hughes, and my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and if Calvin inspired you to make a change or go out there and do something and bring your own software application or career in tech to life, please email me, let me know, and I'll do my best to support you if I can. But that's it for today's episode, so hopefully you'll join me again tomorrow where we'll have another inspirational story. But until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.